When asked about my why over the course of the MAT program and also throughout my interviews and really my entire journey going into the educational field, I usually start out my story with I never wanted to be a teacher. And that's really true. My parents are teachers, my aunt and uncle are teachers, my grandparents are teachers. So many people in my family are teachers, and I think that growing up I used to say, I want to be different. However, for as long as I can remember, I've always been a thinker and a planner and a scheduler. So when I was in middle school, I learned what anthropology was, and I became really interested in it. And from then on, that was my plan. And I followed that plan up until college, where I became an anthropology major. But then sophomore year, I took an education class called Power of the Arts in Teaching with Chris Stanek. After reflecting on my experiences in education, my experiences going into the MAT program, and now my experiences with a specialized internship placement in which I'm working with Chris Stanek, so my whole journey has really kind of come full circle. One word has really kind of pulled and drawn together all of these experiences for me, in that there's the common thread of intentionality. In each of these experiences and in each of these pathways that I've been on, intentionality has been a common theme that has been really important for me to focus on. And so this word, which really strings all of the pieces together, is intentionality. Intentional, done on purpose, deliberate, considered, planned, purpose, intended, meant. To be intentional means to think. It means to think about options and the options beyond options. It takes perspective, taking on the perspective of others, empathy. Intentionality is consciousness, consideration, and curation. Intentionality is intentional. As an educator who has worked in both the classroom and the museum settings, what does intentionality mean to you?
Oh gosh, I think more learning happens when there's intentionality. Granted, I think there are those aha moments and things that don't always occur when we're thinking they might occur, but I think if we're not intentional about the planning for them and about what we want to have happen, then they're less likely to happen. We don't always know who our audience is in a museum, so we have to be very intentional about in what ways are we going to plan for any possible audience. So I think not knowing my audience is one way in which I've had to shift, not being in the classroom when I knew a little bit more about who was coming into the room at any given time.
Prior to working in the museum at the Fine Arts Center, and prior to really spending time in my own classroom in this space, I never really thought about, with intention especially, the similarities between curating the two spaces. Really, the similarities between curating a space like this classroom and the similarities between curating a space like an exhibit or a gallery are so similar in that the underlying responsibilities are the same. There has to be such a level of intentionality in how the space is curated in terms of the colors that are used, the flow that you create, the way that you bring your audience, or in my case as a teacher, my students, into the space, and the way that you can invite their identities into the space so that they can make connections and really learn and grow from the intentionality behind the curation of the space. So as you can see right now, I'm in my future classroom. It's currently a mess, and needs to be curated essentially for my students. So I am in the process right now of really using what I've learned at the Fine Arts Center and kind of thinking about that intentionality behind spaces to really think about how I'm going to set up my students to maximize the space for my students, to really make it ultimately theirs. Because this space should be a place that they feel comfortable, a space where they see themselves, and a space that is theirs. So right now, this is what I'm working with, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the future, especially thinking about how intentionally this space is going to become theirs. Intentional, done on purpose, deliberate, considered, planned, purpose, intended, meant.